Welcome to the Conduit Deeper podcast, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the details that surround our current sermon series, from current events to fascinating finds to conversations that take us deeper into the Word. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Deeper Podcast. My name is Mo, Executive Pastor at Conduit Church, joined with our lead pastor, Darren Tyler, and some special guests today. We are welcoming the Gepner brothers back with us. Specifically, Yftach's back with us, but we have the pleasure of having his brother, Elad, with us this time as we do we have an Israel update. It's been several months since we've had Dr. Gepner with us.
December, yeah.
And it's already May. Memorial Day is next week, if you can believe it. Things are trucking right along. So we felt like it would be really important and imperative while they're in town to spend some time with them, getting caught up and getting, catch up on what's happening, not only in your individual lives, but what's happening in Israel. And so,
yeah, the way we're going to break this up today. Yeah. So we've also got Steinberg and Todd Lamphere with us. So we're going to do the first half with Elad and Yftach, and then the second half we're going to do with Todd and with Uri. And what we want to do is, get an update of where we are in Israel right now on the ground, because you guys are there. And maybe it would be, actually I know it would be good. So when we had Yftach here back in December with his beautiful daughters, we heard the story from your perspective, but we were talking about your brother, Elad, who's here now. And why don't we go back to that morning, just so we can, if someone has not heard the story before, October 7th, what time was it that you started to realize things were going wrong in your town, Elad?
Well, I'm a member of the security squad in the village, and something like 7 a.m., the chief of security called me and asked us to take the gear and the guns and go out, because he heard many reports from many people in the region that there is big problem with the Hamas terrorists in the area.
And when you say security, like we have a homeowners association in our neighborhoods, and they spend most of their time, someone's parked on the street, or you've got the wrong thing in your yard. You guys actually have to have security. Like not a neighborhood watch, but like a neighborhood defense system. Because you're how far from the Gaza border?
Something like 4 miles.
Yeah. Like you can see from where you are. It's pretty flat.
Yeah.
So you wake up, it's like 6 a.m.?
6 a.m. It was a massive shooting through us from Gaza.
Yeah.
And after a few 15 minutes or 1 hour, he called us to get the gear and prepare to defend the village.
So we've seen the footage, but you're the first guy to the gate.
Yeah.
And it's not a gated community like a Williamson County gated community to keep out the riffraff. This is like a defense gate. But the gate's open when you get there.
Yeah, the gate was open. I asked the chief of the security why he can't close the gate. He told me that he tried by his phone to close it, but he can't. And then after a few minutes, the gate was closed. And someone came from the main road, a bicycle rider without his bike, and told us that he saw a pickup with several terrorists on it, something like 10 or 20. And he said that they go to another way for the village. And then the chief of security and one member of the security squad went there because he told them, and I left there alone. And after a few minutes, the pickup came through me.
Yeah, so the gate is closed, and by gate, it's like bars. It's not like a solid gate. So they can see you can see them.
Yeah.
Dude, is your blood pressure I'm trying to think where my heart rate would be. My Apple Watch should be going, or were you cool as a cucumber? Because you seem really relaxed. Like,
yeah, I think your adrenaline is so high level, so you can't feel nothing. You just in automatic mode, and you do what you learn to do and act as you learn. And that's it.
Learned, where did you learn?
In the army.
Yeah, the IDF.
Yeah.
So you've got a pickup full of Hamas terrorists coming at you. At what point do you know this is different than anything we've experienced?
Well, first I thought that this is agriculture workers that came to the village, because you don't imagine that they will come from Gaza to your village. And after they start shooting at me, I was fire back.
Yeah, so you've got a weapon.
Yeah, I'm 16.
So you're firing at them. They're firing at you.
Yeah, it's been a few minutes fire between us. And after, I think 5 minutes, I was hit in the shoulder for one bullet.
Just to clarify, it's 20 Hamas terrorists against my brother with a limited bullet with a one rifle.
Did you get any of them?
I don't know. They didn't leave there any woundedness or
Yeah, so
dying.
you wouldn't have any way to know. I'll bet you did.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Make one of their heads into a canoe. So at some point, they fire an RPG at you or something, right?
Yeah, after I got wounded in the shoulder, I passed my gun to another member of the village, and I told him to keep shooting for their direction. And I went lay down to a tree nearby, and after a minute or so, they launched RPG missile that hit the tree above me.
And is this where you come in? Like at some point, Yftach is now, word is hit. We've talked about that your family knows. Obviously, everybody knows the explosions. Is it that the moment where you show up?
Yeah, at that moment, I called my brother that will come to take me to the hospital, and he came.
And to put this in your mind, as far as if you're imagining this is a small little town, like a moshav, but how many people live there?
1,200.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a town in Nebraska. Like it's tiny. So it's not like some vast expanse. Like you literally
know all of the community. Yeah.
If anybody, like, so if you hadn't gotten I don't know if I should ask this, if you had not gotten that gate closed, what would have happened?
Well, it will be massive murder, same as the kibbutz that Nir Oz and Be'eri. It will be easy to them to get in.
I want to provide an important piece of information. The terrorists that crossed the international border that came, it was a real military operation. And they put all around those kibbutz and moshav, those boxes that avoid the electronic signal to close the gate.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. He mentioned the cell phone
to
try to close the gate, but they shut that down.
So it's crazy. They trying to close the gate multiple times, using the app. It didn't get closed. It got closed at 7:52 by himself. God was there to close the gate, and the terrorist came 2 minutes later.
Wow.
So 2 minutes separate and observe from being Be'eri, Nir Oz, those kibbutzim that people got slaughtered in their bed.
And that's when you showed up in the Tesla.
Were you in sports mode at this point, or did you wait till you got out of it?
I was. So I'm not from the 12 people in the squad team, but the head of security asked everyone who can go to the wall to defend and defend the moshav. I left my wife and 3 kids, and I went with everything I had, and the only thing I found was a stone. So I walked with the whole stone in my hand. Then my brother called. When I saw he's calling me, I realized what happened. I jumped to my Tesla, switched it to a sports mode, and picked him up. He was literally couldn't hear anything because of the RPG missile.
Just a ringing in your ear, probably?
Yeah. He said, I cannot hear. It was like full of blood, holding his shoulder. I led him back in the Tesla, and we went from the big gate. Obviously, we couldn't go from the front gate. We went from the big gate to the road that go to the hospital. So we went from the off-road right before we got into the main road.
And knowing that there are still hundreds at least of terrorists out there, like you're going from behind the wall to get them to a hospital. Was that
Yeah,
must have been
we didn't
terrifying.
know the big picture.
Okay.
We thought that this is a minor event only in our village.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why we go to the hospital.
So you go to the hospital and you quickly figure out there's at least one more truck out there.
So we didn't realize, never imagined that can happen. So right we got onto the road, I looked to the left, it was clear, but when I do the right turn, I saw about 30 of them in front of us. We were unweaponed. We didn't have anything.
So you didn't
on
take
us.
the gun with you, right?
No.
They needed it for the...
Yeah, we left it
Wow.
to people to defend the village.
So you've got and when you say 30, like it's a 1 or 2 pickups or motorcycles in a pickup?
So we saw them very clear, like 300 feet, you can see very clear. There was 2 pickups and 5 motorcycles. And the reason, now we know, the reason those 30 Hamas terrorists were there to block the people that come saving the civilians.
Oh.
It was a road ambush.
So this was so well planned
Yeah.
that they were blocking for people to come save you as well.
There was specific point, there was a curve in the road. So they wait exactly in the middle of the curve to see both directions. And we surprised them. They didn't expect someone to come from the off-road.
They were probably as surprised to see you as they were to see them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you still have the bullet in your shoulder? Or did it go all the way through?
Yeah, the bullet here is still here.
It is still
Yeah.
there. So
There-
metal detectors at airports are a problem?
No, it's fine.
Well, because so you've been shot already and they start shooting at you while you're in the Tesla. You slam it into reverse. Am I remembering this right? So you slam it into reverse. This is where sports mode kicks in.
Right, absolutely.
And they're firing directly at the front of your vehicle?
There was one bullet in the front of the sniper that tried to hit his head and was, because he was laying back, it was like literally touched his hair.
Yeah.
And the bullet, and then we went back to the road and all the bullets from the right side, like hitting my body, was like screaming.
So you've been hit again now.
Yeah, by 2 bullets here in the hip. And the damage here was bigger than the shoulder.
And that was after going like through because it exploded.
Through the car, yeah.
Exploded
Through the
through and
car.
shrapneled.
And then there was like, all his like hip was full of like straps and bullets.
When you're in that moment, so I've had a lot of dumb things, but I've never been shot before. Does the adrenaline take care of the pain, or is the pain immediate?
In the second incident, when I got shot in the hip, it was very hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
The injury was very serious here. So it was painful.
So you guys turn around, you're headed back to the moshav, to the village.
Yeah.
You're bleeding, you're shot. The Tesla still works. Go Elon Musk for something. I mean,
Yeah.
if you guys don't get a free Tesla out of this, I mean, this is such a huge missed opportunity for Tesla. Because if that had been like my truck, like with a regular motor, it would have been, the hoses would have blown, you're here because they shot the front of a Tesla and it didn't work. You go back.
Maybe Elon Musk is listening to your podcast. And
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Probably him and Theo Vaughn. So you get back to the moshav now, but there's no hospital there.
Right.
At what point do you decide we've still got to risk this? Because you don't know what's hit or where, if he's bleeding out. Like, how long are you there before you try to go for help again?
So just a funny story. Before we went to Bashav, we were like driving like crazy, like 100-mile off-road. Like Tesla was jumping, and all the thing my brother said, slow down.
Oh, but it hurt. Oh,
And suddenly there was a bomb. And I was sure that like launched another RPG on us. And I looked in the mirror and I saw like small hearts of like going down. And that was a balloon that my daughter
a balloon in the car?
was exploded
Oh,
from
wow.
the glass that was all over. That was
She's
a funny
grounded
story.
at that point. So you get back. Oh, God.
And the Tesla she died right when we got in because the battery was leaking.
Yeah.
Like,
It's amazing it made it at all. Like
Yeah.
the tires and...
yeah.
So you're back in the moshav. The gates are closed again. And this is actually one of my favorite parts of the story. There's an ambulance there, but there's no keys in it.
Yeah. So there was an ambulance coincidentally on Tex God
Yeah.
because the driver was in the moshav and 2 guys realized they need to, in order to save my brother's life, they need to bring this ambulance. And in the IDF, we know how to solve problem. And they knew they need to bring that ambulance. And he was there 2 minutes after.
Wow. But now someone's got to have the courage to get in the ambulance and drive back out there again.
You know, as you mentioned, we are a community that know each other since ever. And there was not even a question if or who going to drive us there.
Right.
And people just jumped to the ambulance and did whatever we need to save Elad's life.
Did you go with him to the hospital?
I was literally all the way with my finger in his bullet's hole.
Pulling though. Was it hard to decide? I'm trying to imagine this. Feels like an impossible decision. Your brother on the one hand, who is dying, and on the other, you've got your children. And you're about to leave them there. And your wife, she's tough. Like all the Israeli women are tough. I wouldn't fight any of them. But how hard was that, man, to tell your kids, I got to go?
First time when I left, I told them I'm going to look for Elad's dog because she was run away from the bombing. I didn't tell them that I'm going to the fence.
Right. But you knew that wasn't true. How did you feel about that?
So she trusts me.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, it's the level of trust that we trust each other. There was one thing that got them really, really scared and anxiety and stress, that they got a picture of the Tesla full of blood and bullets. And people ask her, how is Yftach and Elad doing? And she didn't even knew that we were in that situation.
Wow.
Only 2 hours later, I will be able to call her and said, we're fine.
But how did you're answering me like an Israeli. They say you guys are like porcupines, like tough outside, but soft under. How did you feel though? Because you're the one that has to, you're the father, you're the protector, you're the husband. And you had to make a decision to leave them knowing that you might be saying goodbye for the last time to them. I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around it, but how did you feel in those moments?
You know, trying to imagine yourself, be in a room with your kids and your wife.
Yeah.
And tell them, I'm going out. That's the way that we as Israeli believe in action. And I would do that again and again and again.
Yeah.
We'll go outside to defend our people. That's what you've been learned to do.
It's something that you guys have in Israel that I feel like we used to have it in America. But it's your desire, your willingness to lock arms and fight for your people, fight for your country. Universities here have been teaching, high schools for that matter, teaching kids to hate their country here. And so it's awfully hard for them to be motivated to want to defend and protect because they've been told that we're occupiers or we're usurpers or all those things that the university crowd is putting into the minds of our teenagers. But the thing that Israel seems to have, and this is, I'm an outsider, right, looking in, but you guys, what you just said, and even watching the young people in the IDF willing to fight, signing up in the reserves, like that's something that is inspiring to me anyway. That you guys you believe in each other, you believe in the idea, the nation, the Zion, that God has put you there. And instead of hating your country, you're willing to fight for it. And there's something to that is inspiring, and I'm a little jealous, honestly. If you don't mind, I'd like to change rails on this. You live 4 miles from Gaza, the border. That means you guys every day, your kids live with the reality. And of course, now it's a whole new reality.
Yeah.
But even like, I picked this up. I think this was in Kfar Aza when we were at a park. And I've kept it because I don't want to forget. Because we're just walking by and I can't remember who said it, but it's like, oh yeah, that's a piece of shrapnel from a Hamas bomb. Just in a kid's park where everything in the park already doubles as a bomb shelter, which is such a strange concept. And you live with that every day. How do you raise children in that environment?
So historically, we have the commitment to stay strong no matter what happened. I mean, it's in our roots. My grandma and grandpa survived the Holocaust. They've been 3 years in Auschwitz. And they built Israel from nothing, from scratch. We had a 67 war, we had a 73 war, and we just become to be a startup nation from that wars. Our parents established and absorbed our Moshav from nothing in 82. There was nothing, just a sand. That's the beginning of the desert. And that became to be the granary of Israel. We are proud and commit to do everything we can to stay strong. This is something that we learn our kids. This is something that I want and I know my kids will have for the next and the next generation. We've been in the Huckabee show yesterday, and Elad say 3 words that summarize everything. We will stay forever. We stay forever. This is something that although the war and craziness, you ask someone that lives 6,000 miles away, why do you live next to the war? Go with your kids to a safe place. If we're not going to stay there, it's not going to be Israel. It's not going to be Zionist dream. The roots of the Jewish people, of the Holy Land, it's something that we do for generation.
One of the questions I had for you, Elad, is, given what took place in October in the village, what security measures have been put in place over the past 7 months to help bolster the protection of the community?
Well, every army knows the best to fight the war that was, and not that one will be. So now we have 24 members with full gear, automatic weapon in the village.
You doubled.
And they will fix the fence, and we have a drone that can protect us and see from miles away. And we practice a lot, shooting a lot in, training.
That's good.
With your children, how many kids do you have, Elad? 2. And you've got 3, right?
Yeah.
2 girls and a boy. Their childhood was stolen from them.
Absolutely right. If you hear the kids talk between themselves, small talks, they talk only about October 7. If the terrorist will come, I will go for this side or from that side. This is what they talk about.
And you told, or somebody was saying that even on that day that kids, before they went to the bomb shelter, a lot of them were going to the kitchen and getting knives.
Yeah, my kids and my daughter boyfriend took knives from the kitchen and stand in the safe room for many hours. And we know this because we couldn't find the kitchen knife after a few months. And we go there and we found it. Yeah.
Wow. There's a major difference between what's happening inside of Gaza in that there are obviously the collateral damage of the war. There are children there that have experienced the same. But the difference is, so far as I can tell, that Israel is targeting Hamas, who are hiding behind civilians. And so once again, Hamas they're the ones causing the damage. They're the ones that the blood is on their hands. But there's a difference between the collateral damage of a war, and this was not collateral damage, what happened in your town and all over on that day of October 7th. This was a literal premeditated murder, rape, torture. And there's still, to this day, hostages. They just announced this week that they found the bodies of 3 hostages. And it seems like the world wants to forget that any of that happened the way that it happened. In the last few minutes we have together, and I'll ask each of you this question. What do you want the world to know? Like, if you had a chance to say, I'm hearing all these lies on TikTok and my kids are hearing what do you want to say to the world that is the truth?
As we know, not as we think, they hate us more than love their kids. I think that summarizes everything. I mean,
they hate you more than they love their own children.
And the fact that we can say that is when our friends, our family member went into Gaza to save these hostages, they find under every kid's bed a rifle, grenade, RPG rockets. Would you imagine to put under your 5-year-old boy beds, grenades, or weapon? When we killed civilians in Gaza because they were hiding behind, Hamas was hiding behind, we feel so bad. We broke. We want them to have a happy life. We want them to enjoy life. They want to murder us all. This is not a fight of this region versus the Hamas, the IDF versus this Iran. It's the evil of the fight of the evil versus the good, the bad, the light versus the dark. This is the fight. If we're not going to win this war and declare the threat of Hamas, that's going to be here in America.
100%. They've made it crystal clear. And when I say they, I mean this jihadist death cult, which exists everywhere from Nigeria to Sudan to Gaza. Radical jihad, it's a death cult.
Hezbollah, the Houthis.
Yes, they're everywhere. And the one thing that they seem to have united around, even with Sunni and Shia Islam, they hate Jews more than they hate each other. That's the one thing. That's why Iran, a Shia state, would sponsor Gaza, a Sunni. Yeah. They're the useful idiots in this case. We're going to fund them because they hate you. And that language is such a wild thing to say that and sitting in front of you, because it seems like that the only people group in the world that people can say the Jews, like if I were to say the things that people say about Jewish people, about the blacks or the Mexicans I would be rightfully so castigated. But for some demonic pit of hell reason, it's okay to say it about, quote, the Jews. How do you talk to your kids about that? I mean, so let me ask it this way. The Wall Street Journal said that they ran a test on TikTok, okay? They set up thousands of accounts and they pretended they were 13-year-old girls. And how long would it take before the algorithm started showing them hateful war? And it was within minutes.
Wow.
And again, 13-year-old girls, and the amount of anti-Semitism, anti-Israel propaganda that's flying at them inside of just that one app. And of course, they're sponsored by China, or owned by China, so it makes all the sense in the world. But Elad, how do you talk to your kids in a world that hates them? How do you even survive in a conversation with your kids with that?
Well, I think they're still kids, so they're thinking that everybody loves them.
Yeah, they should think that.
They don't know the real reality that everyone hates the Jews. But it's hard to explain them this because you don't want to feel like this yourself. So it's hard.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, and it's cold comfort at best. There are a lot of Christians in this world, and us included, that do not hate the, quote, Jews.
Yeah.
We hate evil. And, our shared Torah, woe to you who call good evil and evil good. And when you find on the campus of Portland people with blue hair and surgical masks, I think it was Clay Travis Moe that offered to pay for whoever, he would pay for their flight if these protesters to drop them off in Gaza. Then if he could go with them, he'd pay for their trip to go there. Because the irony is that the blue-haired people, the safest place for them in the Middle East is Israel. Like, the irony is, it's so maddening that it's evil, because the very thing that they're protesting, which most of them don't even know what they're protesting against or for. But if you were to drop them off inside of Gaza, they'd be gone within seconds.
Yeah.
Not only that, they would put him as a shield.
Yeah.
as a shield behind terrorists. You know, you mentioned that 13 years old. And remember, we've been here just in December, and Ella, she's 13, and she was afraid to wash her hair in the shower to close their eyes after October 7. You know, they were facing, Elad just mentioned, they lose their childhood, and they see those crazy people in TikTok and Instagram saying that free Palestine from the river to the sea, and those crazy things that I don't know, again, which river and which sea. And you see those hate, but we also see a huge hug from Christian. We see a huge support, like we couldn't imagine. And as an optimistic country, we try to hold the good things.
Yeah.
We're trying to not go down to the dark and to the depression and the anxiety, because those kids, it will take a while to recover.
Speaking of recovery, Elad, how are you doing health-wise? Your shoulder, your hip?
Now, thanks God, I'm perfectly fine. It was rough recovery, but
Amazing.
now I'm perfectly good.
I mean, he says rough recovery. When I was there in early January, so 60 days after being shot, like a lot, he was standing by the gate with his gun, ready to go. Like, how do you destroy or defeat that kind of guy? You know, how do you win in that situation? You can shoot me and I'll still come after you. Like, well, thanks for being here. We're excited to have you tomorrow with our church family. Heartbroken that the reason we had to meet was because of the situation, but also grateful to God that we got to meet because of that. Like that's, seems like the world has been reshuffling the deck for the last 4 years, and you start to find out, okay, the people that I thought were my people are not my people.
Yeah.
And then there's this people that we're now finding that are our people. And so there's a certain amount of peace that comes from that, because there's a unity around truth. We don't believe in unity for the sake of unity. That's called delusion.
Yeah.
If you unite around a lie, that's delusion. We believe in truth. And if you unite around truth, that's true unity. And the truth is there are some evil people that tried to murder. Had you not have been at that gate, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. They would have gotten into your village and it would have been the same situation. And I know you hate being called a hero, Elad.
Yeah.
But that is as heroic of a move, like baller. So good on you for that.
Thanks.
Nothing but respect from us.
Thank you.
And we continue to and will not stop standing with you, with our voices, with our money, with our lives, because it's right and it's good. And we say this often, but no, people don't have to wonder anymore, what would I have done in Germany? What would I have? We know we get to make that. We have to make that decision now. And by not making any decision, all you've just made a decision, which is that we're cowards. And I can only speak for Conduit Church, but I can also say that in the conversations and the friends that I have, that there are a lot of people who see the madness of the Blue Hair Brigade and the madness of what's happening and the evil of the jihadist death cult and stand with you, including, what's happening. I mean, I'm so proud of our friend Dave Ramsey that when they tried to cancel this event because of the hotel buckled, folded like a napkin, Dave, and he's going to take an enormous amount of grief for it. But my point is he's a very visible, very courageous man, and there's a lot of them out there. So like the prophet Elijah, you are not alone. There are thousands others who have not bowed to the death cult of jihad. And so thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for the love and the support. We appreciate it.
Well, I hope to see you again in Ein Abzor soon, very soon.
I would love to.
Thank you to the Gepner brothers for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, and Todd and Yuri are going to join us. We're going to continue the conversation.
Since the horrors of October 7th attack, the people of Ein Abzor have been scattered in hotels all over Israel. Despite what they went through, most residents are now back, trying to rebuild their lives and regain a sense of normalcy. We're aiming to construct a new sports complex for the children to play safely, as well as a sheltered community and activity center for the elderly. That's why we're here today, asking for your help.
Rebuilding these vital community spaces is critical
for enabling true healing and returning to a normal life after such trauma.
Take this basketball court, for example. With your help, we can turn this into this.
This will become a ninja training facility. And this will be a brand new soccer field. Look, a tennis court. And here, pickleball courts.
Since the horrific events of October 7th, several of our elderly have passed away from heartache and anxiety. Help us transform this into a vibrant, safe community hub with proper protection. It will provide the peace of mind we desperately need.
Friends, these projects aren't just about rebuilding infrastructure. They're about rebuilding lives for En Absor and neighboring communities alike.
Your support will help En Absor and neighboring communities reclaim their sense of normalcy and provide a brighter future for generations to come in this region.
Thank you guys for being here. Todd, Lamphere, Uri Steinberg. Todd, you and I are newer friends. Uri and I have never met until recently, but you spent time in and around Nashville in the music world. I was fascinated by that, by the way. So you know tons of people that I know, like with the GMA. How did a Jewish guy end up working in Christian music?
A good question. So I served as a diplomat for Israel for many years, and my job was to get people to Israel. And that kind of led me to, okay, who can I influence? Who are the influencers in the Christian world that can help tell the story of, hey, y'all need to go to Israel, will change your life? And that kind of led me to the music world. And doors just kept opening up. And it's a fascinating world. And again, you said, I'm a Jewish kid from Jerusalem. My grandmother, who was born in Poland, and Christians for her was just trouble throughout her childhood.
Yeah.
Would have never imagined that I will be welcomed in Christian circles, nor would have her parents and her great-great-parents, and you can go down the line 2,000 years. So for me, it was a whole new adventure, and I'm so privileged and happy to have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jesus was a Jewish kid from Jerusalem. I mean, technically Bethlehem, but on a technicality. But and then Todd is with us, and Todd served with us here. With you guys are both with an organization called CityServe, which is incredible. Their founders came from Convoy of Hope, founded Convoy of Hope.
That's correct.
Which they were an amazing organization that helped us in Haiti back in the day, like right after the earthquake. The Convoy of Hope people were. But before that, though, you spent some time working in and around the White House, right, during the Trump administration. What was your job, and how in the heck did that happen?
Well, it's one of those things. A Southern Baptist pastor who hooks up with a charismatic, tongue-speaking female pastor in the name of Paula White, who happened to be President Trump's pastor, and she ran the White House Office of Faith and Opportunity Initiative, and so I've had the privilege of serving her as her chief of staff.
Which is funny even
years.
of itself. So you're a Southern Baptist pastor, a very successful church in Tampa. Obviously, Paula's been around there, and you through a series of events end up at her church. And by saying her church, as a Southern Baptist, that had to make your skin crawl a little bit, right? Because that every Dallas Theological Seminary in you would be like, that's not possible.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm a Liberty grad, so my thesis was actually, this was 40 years ago, on why speaking in tongues is not scriptural for today. And so I think
you probably got a good grade at Liberty for that.
That's I got an A.
Yeah,
the reality is, listen, God's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, he does.
I think what He's shown us is that the family of God's a lot bigger than our little silos.
Yeah, he thinks that crap is funny. And
that's right.
I mean, if you're God, you've been around forever, occasionally just stirring it a little bit just for entertainment. And, it would be,
that's right.
So now you guys are now working for the same organization, which is CityServe. And we just talked with Elad and Yftach, which you guys, because of you, that I was even able to meet them. But it was just, so CityServe is in America. You guys have some other global things, but you had just, is this right, that you had just started like 6 months before in Israel, had just gotten the nonprofit status and through all the government hoops, and like 6 months before this happened?
Yeah, it was, as I learned from Christians, it's a God thing, right? Because I was asked by the founders of CityServe to open, CityServe Israel. And we were looking, like, where can we make an impact? And where can I can build bridges between Christian and Jews? Because one of the biggest problems that we have in Israel, that Jews do not know anything about Christianity. Nothing. And right now, when we're getting so closer, there needs to be tighter relationship.
Which, by the way, I learned that because of this last year. But how is it possible that tens of thousands, if not, well, more than that, hundreds of thousands of Christians from all over the world go to Israel every year? I mean, you go to like the Jordan River to do baptisms, and there's like the Nigerian church, there's a Korean church, there's the Conduit Church. But that's what I began to understand, was that the Jewish presence, like I guess we were tourists, but were you, like, let me ask it differently. Do the Jewish people view us as, maybe pre this, like we're good tourists, but keep it at arm's length because of the history?
Well, yes and no. I think the big problem was technical, that a lot of the tourists that came were sightseers. So you come, and the only Jews you usually meet are the tour guide and the bus driver. But there, for various, even commercial reasons, there was no real motivation to, hey, let's meet them, and vice versa. And I admit that there's a lot of hesitation from the Jewish side as well because of history. But I do think that people are coming closer together. And I think what happened on October 7th and the ensuing support and love that so many Jews in Israel received from the Christian world and did not receive from so many other communities are actually going to be, enhancing and fortifying this kind of ongoing relationship. Because their thirst, people are saying, who are those people who love me so much? Why do they love me so much?
Yeah.
And have no mistake, I mean, there's a lot of naysayers in Israel. There's still people who carry this burden, this historical burden of, it's not sincere. What are the hidden agendas? And I and Todd and others are out there to say, hey guys, you cannot ask for better friends out there. So that's kind of our missions, and we're happy to kind of be important players who can help move that forward.
Todd, right now, I mean, I'm assuming you still have connections with those in Washington, and especially in this season right now. What are the current roadblocks that you guys are up against in trying to get support, and whether it's aid or just awareness? Like, are you up against some roadblocks in Washington about all of this currently?
Well, I don't think it's a secret that this administration is not friendly towards our friends in Israel. They've made it very clear that although they say they support Israel, then with their actions they don't. And so I think that's America's roadblock. That's not just ours. I think that's America's roadblock, and I think that's our challenge, particularly as evangelical Christians, because we believe Genesis 12:3 to our core, that those that bless Abraham and his seed will be blessed. And what we're seeing right now is the opposite in that next part of the verses, but those that curse Israel will be cursed. And so that really is our mantle right now, is to really push the administration to be able to do what's right, number one, by our allies. Forget the whole issue of the biblical mandate that we have. There's just really a moral mandate that you don't dish your friends in their time of most desperate need.
Yeah, listening to our president, well, even actually him trying to complete a sentence at this point is inspiring. Yeah. But his idea that you could just take out 80% of Hamas or whatever the number is, it's like any oncologist on the planet, you don't take out 80% of cancer, you take it all. Right. And then you radiate it and you make sure that it's not coming back. And the people of Gaza being free from Hamas is just as much of a gift to them as it is to the rest of the world. But when it comes to even Americans who are saying, this isn't our fight, it's not our battle, it's so deliciously naive. And in fairness, I've traveled a lot, and I've experienced the jihadist death cult in North Africa, in the Middle East, and Asia. And there are people in this world that are just 100%, they've lost it, they're evil. And when it's evil, you don't negotiate with evil. You get the guns, you get the lawyers, and deal with it. And when you hear from your perspective, Uri, because you still live do you live in Tel Aviv? I don't know where you live.
I do.
Okay. When you hear what's happening in like the college campuses of America, because you spent time here, you understand America better than most because you were here.
Yeah.
What does that do to your soul?
In an interesting twist, it awakens it because, once you confront this, ludicrous blue hair people, it creates moral clarity. And I think it creates moral clarity for so many people. It is as if God was trying to make a point and is like, hey, how can it be resounding? How can it be very clear? And when you hear that, of course, you're saddened by this blunt anti-Semitism, which it is what it is. It's blunt anti-Semitism, but it also makes it so clear, like, where do you need to stand? I can tell you, I'm encouraged by the decisions of my ancestors to come to Israel. I can tell you this.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to friends in the largest Jewish city in the world, New York, and I've got one of my best friends is a doctor in Mount Sinai, and she has to tell her daughter, hey, the Star of David necklace that you wear, just put it under your shirt. Because you kind of hear 1920s or 1930s verbiage that you never thought. I do believe, if I'm trying to, psychoanalyze myself and the psyche that a lot of Israelis and Jews have right now, is we're still trying to figure out how do we handle this bombardment of events. And I think it will take time. I think maybe 2 years from down the road, I will be able to digest what the last 7 months have meant to me and my family in Israel and globally as a Jew. But right now, that's kind of how I try to digest that.
It seems like that part of the grieving process, and maybe this isn't for you because maybe your lived experience, but there's the world that I thought we lived in, and then there's the world we woke up in, and those are not the same world. And so some of the last 4 years, starting with COVID, there was a grieving process of the death of the world that I thought we lived in. And again, having traveled, I remember Indonesia, for instance, like on their government IDs, that you have to choose your religion. And there's 5 options. And Jewish wasn't one of them. And I asked our missionary partner there, well, what do you do if you're Jewish? And she was like flabbergasted. And she said, well, you don't. Like, well, what does that even mean? Like, you just don't. And that, that's Indonesia, which, obviously there's some radical pockets of Islam, but that's a moderate Islamic country, and the anti-Semitism is there. But to see that now spill open into the zeitgeist of the world is, it's just, I'm still catching up to that because they're saying the quiet parts out loud. So what I don't know, maybe you could tell me this, like, is this the way it just always was and nobody was saying it? Or is this a new old thing happening over again?
The sobering truth is it's a new thing. It's an old thing happening again and again. Apparently, if you Google anti-Semitism in the 12th century, in the 17th century, wherever you are, every century, there was something, whether it's in 12th century England or 19th century Russia. And we thought, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and we thought that history is over, right? We thought that the Berlin Wall is done.
Yes, that's what I thought.
And democracy and peace agreements, and we were living in La La Land, and apparently, and we did not think that those things that we've seen in the 20th century will repeat again. And as I told my friends in the U.S., the same thing that our forefathers had to witness and deal with, this is 21st century's Google search for anti-Semitism in the 21st century. And as sobering as it is extremely sad. Yeah. It is extremely sad.
What's one of the things that's new to me, and Todd, you and I are close in age. I have this memory of right thinking, right wing conservatives historically have been very aligned with Israel. And honestly, it used to be something that was bipartisan. I'm old enough to remember Joseph Lieberman, and there was this bipartisan idea. But something that's really interesting, and Mo and I have both seen it, even in our own church. There's a thread of far right wing Christians that are they're just being very anti-Semitic right now. It's like a throwback to Martin Luther. And I might be naive, but I don't think so. That seems to be a very small portion. They just happen to be really loud. Are you seeing that too? Like this is new to me. Like the conspiracy theories floating around, but when you start seeing, the Jews this and the Jews that coming from a Christian, I just want to slap them upside the head. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's the silent majority is always gets the headline, and that's what's happening here. I will tell you though, with the Christian community, particularly the evangelical community, and I think you need to separate.
That's fair.
Those two. Is the evangelical community, what 7 October did for the evangelical community is it put them in a position to have to choose. And up until this time, they really hadn't. You could play both sides of the fence. You say, I'm for Israel. But now you are either for Israel or you're against Israel. There's no gray, there's no middle ground, there's no buffer zone anymore. You're either in or you're out. And I think that's an important place for us to recognize, anyways. And replacement theology obviously is damnable. Is a heresy, and that's really motivating a lot of people. They just don't understand. Hosea 4:6 says that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And if you're getting your information about what's happening in Gaza and in the Middle East from CNN or even Fox News, you're and not getting it from the Word, then you're gonna steer wrong.
Todd, as you're garnering support for Israel across your network of churches in Christian communities across America specifically, is there? I mean, you can speak freely here, but is there are you seeing a denominational sway? Like, are there certain denominations that are like, we're not interested? I mean, you mentioned the evangelical church, obviously, but is it that obvious? Are there even groups within evangelical pockets that they're gun shy is probably a terrible word choice.
It might be appropriate, actually. The cowards.
I'm just curious of where the pockets are hot and cold within the church community.
We're facing this, and one of the things I love about Conduit Church is that you've made the deliberate decision that you're not going to be woke. You're not going to try to straddle the fence. You're not going to try to appease everyone. You don't want to offend anyone. The reality is the gospel itself is offendable. It's an offendable,
It is excluding, yeah.
It's very exclusive. And so what this has done is it really has highlighted who's for Israel and who's not. Again, there's no middle ground. Are there denominations within the broader Christian? Absolutely. Your mainstream denominations are going to have a real tough time with, standing behind Israel. But even within the evangelical, the non-denominational movement, is that they're at. This is the beauty of what's happening is that you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
You can't be, half Israel in half, Palestinian theology on this. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, is how many of these churches or denominations are trying to play Switzerland in this whole thing?
Well, you can't. I mean, that's exactly what this administration is trying to do with a two-state solution.
Yeah.
No one wants a two-state solution except the United States. And
including the Palestinians. I mean, Yasser Arafat turned it down multiple times.
Palestinians don't want, they really mean what they say, from the river to the sea. They want it all. So they don't want a two-state solution. Obviously, Israel, and I think this is one of the things that happened with 7 October, is that your secular Jews, if you can put it that way, in the United States, who are like, well, let's just give them some land, or let's appease, are even now saying, you know what, that in my neck of the woods, that dog won't hunt, and we can't do that anymore.
But just to touch exactly what you said about the Jewish community here, and to an earlier point that you've made about the fringes of the right that are just bluntly anti-Semitic now, I think what every Christian needs to do right now is reach out to the Jews around you.
Yeah.
And if you're in Nashville, reach out to the Jewish community, because on one hand, they're getting attacked by anti-Semites. On the other hand, there are a lot of Christians out there who are just sitting on the fence, playing the UN. And I can tell you, a lot of Jews are feeling betrayed and they feel alone.
Yeah.
And they need to know that people are thinking about them. And we're not hiding anything. There's always been some sort of a tension between a lot of Jewish communities and Christian communities. But this is the time, whether it's being answered or not, just say, hey, just we're here, we love you, we pray for you, and I think it will go a long way.
Yeah, and if you're watching, one of the things that we've done here, our friend Patricia Heaton started an organization that she calls the October 7th Coalition, and we were the first church to sign on to that with Patty and her crew. And that was the whole point, was to say to our Jewish friends in America, and I don't know if you even know, maybe you remember this, because at the airport, when we got dropped off coming back from Tel Aviv, it was chaotic, understandably, at the airport. And I got in line, and some nice, helpful person, oh no, come over to this line, and they put us in line, and I mean, like, the next person in line, and the next 5 people in line were rabbis from Nashville. They knew Patty. They were there for something completely different, and we literally just happened to be standing next to each other. I'm like, you're the guys I'm supposed to call you when I get home. So here we are. So Rabbi Saul, we made, and of course we're in line at an airport, so we're like 2 hours, got a lot of time to bond. But that is what they communicated as well, is that we don't want your money. We just don't want to be alone.
Yeah, and I'm encouraged, quite frankly, that for the evangelical community that has come up, that has spoken. In fact, this Sunday is National Pray for Israel Sunday, and this is really I'm encouraged by the push and the groundswell of evangelical support, because again, it's you're either in or you're out. There's no middle ground anymore.
Yeah, the worst place to stand on a tennis court is the middle, because it's where the ball bounces.
That's right.
You can't hit anything, so take a position, front or back.
Take a position. Yeah.
And our position. And if you look, I think it's 5 times in the New Testament. You're the pastor, you would know. 5 times in the New Testament, it says, I don't want you to be ignorant about, and it's, end times, it's about the gifts of the Spirit. Yeah. But Romans 11:25 is God's plan for Israel. I don't want you to be ignorant about this. And then 1 Peter 3 speaks of a willful ignorance. They deliberately forgot what God. And what does Winston Churchill say? Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Like it might have been a Churchill, but that's what Peter was saying. Don't be ignorant of this. And if you happen to be watching this and you are someone out there in your podcast world talking about the Jews this and the Jews that, man, you better check yourself, because when you're cursing something that God has blessed, that is literally the last place you need to be, is on the back end of cursing what God has blessed. And to that end, one of the ways that we're going to bless our friends in Israel is in Ein Absor, which our mutual friend Uri, the pilot, actually taught me that in Hebrew means gospel. I was blown away by that. We're standing, he took us out to the place, remember that, where David and his mighty men like regathered right before they went to the Amalekites.
1 Samuel 30.
Yeah. And he's like, this means gospel. Like, whoa, I had no idea. But in Ein Abzor, we've already, we've been there, we've seen it. You guys have been active. What's happening in Ein Abzor right now that is happening, what needs to happen, and where do you need us to help?
Well, you know, with the beautiful blessing from Conduit and people who listen to this podcast, you know, it's what's been able to be done is just really exponential even to this point. From when everyone moved out of Ein Abzor into the town of Elad, you know, to be able to help there with washing machines and just very, very practical. You know, they needed food, they needed clothing, they needed help. But 80% of Ein Abzor is back in Ein Abzor. So, you know, now what we've been able to do is really exponential, from bringing medical care to seniors, to counseling and therapy for those who are dealing with the trauma. We're also they've relocated the schools to inside Ein Abzor. Well, you know, buildings had to be retrofitted and equipment bought. That's what you all did in helping us. And I could go on, and in fact, Uri, you can probably give even a broader, but there's so much that's been done because of this podcast and the Conduit Church.
There's also, besides that, you know, one of the first thing that we've done is help them to purchase this thermic drone. People were back, but they're not feeling secure. And you were there, Darren. The noises from Rafah, just a couple of miles down the road.
Yeah. Rafah's just a couple miles down the road.
Yeah.
And if you're paying attention to anything that's happening in the news, Rafah is an insurgent point right now.
That's right.
And so I'm sure it's very loud.
Yeah, the last stand of Hamas is happening there.
I was there 2 weeks ago, and we were just producing a video that we'll show here. And the noise was just constant.
Wow.
And the kids were playing, but the noise was constant. And the parents are saying, I need to have something that is my eye in the sky that will make sure that if someone is trying, that we have more than 2 minutes. And we help them to get that. And, you know, you guys helped elderly go to medical treatment, where when most people were down in Elad in hotels and people in their 70s saying, I ain't going nowhere, they still needed a checkup, and there were cabs coming to help out. You know, acquiring stuff for kindergarten, alternative education, emotional support. How do you get psychologists to start speaking to kids about what they went through? This was all done by the great people of Conduit Church, and there's more and more happening. But you all help people just get on with their life, and what's been happening here has just been an incredible blessing.
So what is it that needs to happen next?
Yeah. So right now it's, all right, we're back, but we need to renew and we need to regain some forces to move forward. And in order to do that, people need to feel safe. And there's two main elements that now we're focusing. The first one is what we call sports complex. So it's basically getting the basketball, the soccer, the pickleball.
Pickleball, Mo.
Yeah.
You've got my full attention.
Okay.
Avid pickleball player. If there's pickleball involved, I'm all ears.
So yeah. So as in the U.S., pickleball also was able to make its way to the Middle East.
Fastest growing sport in the country.
But you know where it's not growing? Gaza. The Gazans, for some reasons, don't care about pickleball. And they don't care about a lot of other stuff. But in Ein Abzor, they do, and some also ninja training facilities. And we said, and Pastor Todd and I've been talking about that. You know, if you got trauma, what better way to deal with it than just go out and play? Yeah. And kids need to feel safe to play, and they need places to do that. And I cannot think of anyone who would say, why do they need soccer fields. They need because they're kids and they need to be kids.
So good.
And
It's
not
fighting for normal is what it is. I mean, that's
and not only that, and part of the blessing of Enabsor is really a light to the Eshkol Valley. And other communities that are now starting drip by drip to go back to their homes don't have soccer fields. They don't have pickleball courts, and they will come to Enabsor for tennis lessons. So this will be a blessing to the entire region, not just to Enabsor.
The other thing those complexes do is it gets these kids off their screens, right?
Yeah.
Gets them outside, active
some
with
away
their friends.
from the anti-Semitism on TikTok and Instagram.
Creates community.
That's a good point, Mo.
Activity, yeah.
Yeah, the biggest thing on this is, trauma brings you inward. So when you hear like Elad talking about his child, his two children, teenage children, were in the safe room for 24 hours with holding a knife. I mean, the trauma, we can't even quantify.
No wheelhouse for that.
Yeah, there isn't. We can't quantify how the effect of that. So when trauma hits, it turns you inward, all right? It isolates you. And childhood trauma, the greatest antidote for childhood trauma is playing. Is getting them outside, is getting them moving, is getting them talking. And so when people say, well, isn't that a little frivolous to do a sports complex? Just the opposite. It is the greatest therapeutic thing that we can do for those 500 children, school-age children that live in Enabsor, and then all of those that live around in the neighboring communities. And so great for the people of Enabsor. We're just so grateful for their willingness to seek help. And this actually came as a result of talking to child psychologists. How can we help our children? And to get them playing. And so that's when we came up with this whole concept of creating the Enabsor CityServe Israel Sports Complex. And we're really excited about it because we believe that's going to be the greatest therapy available.
Another project that we're working on is the community or elderly center. One of the things that we've learned is in the last 7 months, several people in their, not elderly, in their 70s have passed away from anxiety and heartache, really. And one of the problems that they have, the community doesn't have a place to gather that is safe. Because the community center that they've had is just not protected against missiles. So one of the things we want to do is to allow this complex to be sheltered, to be concrete, that they can be there and they can play bridge and they can sing together or do whatever they want to do and just feel that they can be there safely. And it's just one of those places that we just have to help them out.
Todd, before we go, how much are we talking here?
It's a great question. We've really phased this out in two phases. One is the first is the sports complex, and then phase two would be the senior center. The sports complex, we're looking at about $450,000 to be able, which is really to do pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball courts, soccer fields, a pavilion. It's the Ninja, which I think you would probably really love.
100%.
The Ninja course, right?
Yeah, I can see Darren flying around that thing.
Yeah, you're pickleball, he's Ninja. All right.
Sold.
Fat ninjas. We're a niche community, but we're there.
Fruit Ninja.
Yeah. And then with the phase two, the senior center, which is also going to be a bomb shelter. That's about $1 million to fully renovate that.
Well, if you're watching this and God is pricking at your heart, ConduitChurch.com, the drop-down menu, we still have Israel, and 100% of it still goes to CityServe and to Israel. So if the Lord is moving on your heart at all, obviously you can, if you still use checks, which some do, we can facilitate that, but 100% of that. And there's a chance for you to get to bless Israel. So when Todd talks about you, Conduit Church isn't a what, we're a who. And Mo and I just get to tell the stories, and then we all get to listen to what the Lord wants. So I was so proud of our church family back in December.
Yes.
I had hoped, I told you, and I think hope we'll get like $20,000. That was because we had like 36 hours notice. And obviously we just had a lot of people that were obedient to what God asked them to do, and God asked them to do a lot, and they said yes. And so I'm praying that that's whatever God puts on your heart is what it is. And so we want to be the conduit of that from here to Ein Abzor. So thank you guys for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Todd, you guys are here, obviously in town. What's next? I mean, you're visiting from Israel. You're stateside, but what's the next step for you guys this week on this trip?
Well, we'll actually, you are the pinnacle. You are the tip of the spear for us on this trip right here, and with Elad and Yftach, the Gepner brothers. We do have a great gathering with the Israel 365, and the Israel guys are in town as well.
Do you know that they're from here? Their daddy is a guy named Tommy Waller.
Tommy Waller, yeah.
And Tommy was like a Christian guy.
That's right.
He's here. He knows Dave, Andy Marshall, who started a restaurant called Puckett's. And I know Tommy and Rhonda Wicks, fellow pickleball aficionado. They all grew up here. And he borderline went full Amish with his kids for a while. And then, moved to Israel 10 years ago.
He's phenomenal.
So I learned about the Israel guys from Mo's wife, Jenny. She sends me a link. And so I was following them for 2 years before I realized, wait, those are Tommy's kids? I should have checked. I didn't know. But so that's why one of the main reasons that, Dave has got Ramsey, the courage on that guy is just doesn't
unbelievable.
Stop.
Yeah.
But they are very, they're old friends as well. And so we don't, one thing we do here is if you're a friend, we are fiercely loyal, not blindly, but fiercely loyal to that. And so it was cool. So so you can hang out with the Israel guys. And then when do you head back to Israel?
Well, first of all, I would mention one of the fierce friends that we have also is Governor Mike Huckabee. We just had us again on his show. And we do plan to bring the entire, I think, Gepner gang in the summer. But we're flying back very soon. I'm flying on Wednesday. We all have kids in Israel that we do have to supply their needs, AKA Sephora.
So you've got daughters.
Yeah. And
but line item.
But we have some interesting meetings, and we hope to grow this web of connections and that we've been getting here.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys once again for joining us.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard of the Israel Guys podcast, I'm going to go ahead and plug that because it's an incredible resource, and they'll probably have some updated resources from this coming summit that's happening this week. Go check them out, and then always check out what's happening here at Conduit. If you have any questions, go to ConduitChurch.com. And if you want to donate, you want to be a part of what's happening here at Conduit, you can just click the Give link. The drop down will be there, and it'll show you the next steps and how you can be involved. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Thank you for listening. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. We really do appreciate you joining us.